Carl Gustav Jung's theory of the collective unconscious is one of the most profound and far-reaching contributions to modern psychology and the broader understanding of human nature. Unlike the personal unconscious, which contains memories and experiences unique to each individual, the collective unconscious is a universal repository of archetypes, myths, instincts, and symbols shared by all human beings regardless of culture, race, or historical period. It is a fundamental part of Jung's analytical psychology, and it reveals the deep psychic structures that underlie not only individual minds but also collective human behavior, culture, and spirituality. Jung arrived at the idea of the collective unconscious through a combination of clinical observation, self-experimentation, and deep study of mythology, religion, and cultural symbols across time and space. During his work with patients, he encountered dream images, fantasies, and symbolic patterns that seemed to arise not from the individual's life experiences but from a deeper transpersonal source. Patients who had never studied mythology or ancient religion would dream of symbols that could be found in ancient Egyptian, Hindu, or alchemical texts. These correspondences could not be explained by personal memory or cultural conditioning alone. For Jung, this pointed to a deeper layer of the unconscious, an inherited collective dimension that binds all of humanity. The collective unconscious is composed of archetypes, primordial images or patterns of thought and behavior that are not learned but are innate. Archetypes are not specific, fully formed figures. Rather, they are structural blueprints or potentials that become actualized through individual experience. Examples include the mother, the hero, the shadow, the trickster, the wise old man, the child, and the anima and animus. Each archetype can manifest in countless variations depending on personal context and cultural expression. For example, the hero archetype might appear as Hercules in Greek mythology, King Arthur in Western legend, or as a modern-day protagonist in a film or novel. Jung emphasized that archetypes are not inherited ideas but rather inherited possibilities of ideas. They are akin to instinctual patterns in animals' behaviors that are not learned but emerge naturally. Similarly, archetypes emerge in human experience, shaping how we perceive the world, how we relate to others, and how we construct meaning in our lives. They serve as organizing principles within the psyche, helping to mediate between the inner world and the outer world. Through dreams, myths, and creative expression, the archetypes reveal themselves and help individuals navigate life's developmental stages and existential challenges. One of the key ways the collective unconscious expresses itself is through dreams. Jung viewed dreams as direct communications from the unconscious, often presenting images that are not merely symbolic of personal issues, but are expressions of universal themes. For example, a dream involving descent into a dark cave might symbolize a personal crisis, but it also echoes the archetypal motif of the underworld journey, found in stories from Orpheus to Dante. In this sense, dreams connect the individual to the collective human story, linking private experience with ancient myth. Jung believed that engaging consciously with the contents of the collective unconscious was essential for psychological growth. He called this process individuation, the development of the individual as a unique whole being through the integration of unconscious content. The collective unconscious provides the raw material for individuation by confronting the ego with archetypal realities. Through this confrontation, the ego is humbled, enriched, and ultimately transformed. The aim is not to dissolve the ego but to integrate it into a larger, more balanced self. The archetype of the shadow plays a particularly important role in this process. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we repress or deny, qualities we dislike or fear, but which are still part of our nature. While the personal shadow contains traits shaped by individual experience, the collective shadow encompasses the dark aspects of humanity as a whole: violence, greed, cruelty, and the potential for evil. Jung warned that failure to confront and integrate the shadow leads to projection, scapegoating, and social conflict. When we do not recognize the shadow within ourselves, we project it onto others, seeing them as the enemy or the source of evil. This mechanism underlies much of human prejudice, war, and systemic injustice. The collective unconscious also finds expression in religion and mythology. Jung argued that religious symbols and myths are expressions of archetypes, providing frameworks through which people can relate to the deeper layers of the psyche. The Christian motif of the crucified and resurrected Savior, for instance, resonates with the archetype of the dying and reborn God found in many cultures. These symbolic narratives serve both a psychological and spiritual function, helping individuals and communities make sense of suffering, transformation, and redemption. For Jung, religious experiences are not illusions or neuroses, as Freud believed, but essential encounters with archetypal realities that support psychological integration. One of Jung's most striking claims was that the collective unconscious is not merely a passive repository of old symbols but an active living reality. It has agency, direction, and intentionality. Jung described it as a vast sea of psychic energy that constantly seeks to be expressed in conscious life. This is why archetypal images continue to appear in dreams, visions, art, literature, and religion across time. They are not static relics of the past but dynamic forces that shape human consciousness. The collective unconscious thus acts as both a source of wisdom and a challenge, confronting us with aspects of ourselves and humanity that we may not wish to see but must ultimately confront. Jung's theory of the collective unconscious was influenced by his wide-ranging reading in world mythology, comparative religion, alchemy, philosophy, and anthropology. He saw parallels between his psychological findings and the symbolic systems of ancient cultures. For example, he drew heavily from the I Ching, Tibetan Buddhism, Hinduism, and medieval alchemical texts. He found in these traditions rich symbolic languages that mirrored the archetypal contents of the collective unconscious. Alchemy, in particular, became a central focus of Jung's later work, as he saw in it a symbolic process of psychological transformation that prefigured his concept of individuation. Jung's notion of the collective unconscious also challenged the dominant scientific paradigms of his time. In an age increasingly committed to empiricism and materialism, Jung proposed that the psyche had a transpersonal dimension that could not be explained by personal history or biological drives alone. He emphasized the symbolic and subjective nature of reality, arguing that human consciousness is shaped as much by internal images as by external stimuli. This position earned him criticism and marginalization from some quarters of the academic and psychoanalytic community, particularly among followers of Freud. Yet, over time, his ideas gained broader recognition, especially in fields such as depth psychology, art therapy, comparative religion, and transpersonal psychology. The collective unconscious also offers a powerful framework for understanding cultural phenomena. Archetypes do not merely shape individual psychology. They manifest in collective behavior, social institutions, and historical events. Mass movements, ideologies, and cultural trends often reflect archetypal dynamics playing out on a societal scale. Jung's analysis of Nazi Germany, for instance, suggested that the rise of Hitler was fueled in part by the activation of archetypes such as the hero, the shadow, and the Wotan-like father figure within the German collective psyche. This made Jung deeply concerned about the ethical and political implications of unconscious archetypal forces, and he stressed the importance of self-awareness and psychological education as bulwarks against mass psychosis. In addition to dreams and myth, the collective unconscious manifests through symbols. Jung defined a symbol as the best possible expression for something essentially unknown. Symbols arise spontaneously in the psyche when we encounter something numinous, an experience that feels larger than the self, full of mystery and significance. Artistic creation, religious ritual, and visionary experience often produce symbolic forms that communicate directly with the unconscious. These symbols help mediate between conscious and unconscious, enabling integration and transformation. Because the collective unconscious is a realm of meaning, not mechanism, it can only be accessed symbolically, not through logic or empirical analysis alone. Jung was particularly interested in the anima and animus archetypes, the contrasexual aspects of the psyche. For a man, the anima represents the inner feminine, feeling, intuition, receptivity. For a woman, the animus represents the inner masculine, reason, strength, action. These archetypes are not simply gender stereotypes, but deeply ingrained psychic structures that influence our relationships and our inner balance. Jung believed that true individuation requires integrating these contrasexual elements, leading to greater wholeness. Failure to do so results in projection, idealizing or demonizing others based on unrecognized aspects of the self. Synchronicity, another of Jung's key concepts, also relates to the collective unconscious. He defines synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence, a connection between inner experience and outer events that is not causally related but nevertheless significant. For Jung, synchronicities occur when archetypal energies are activated and express themselves both within and outside the individual. A dream that coincides with a real-life event or a chance encounter that feels fated are examples of how the collective unconscious can influence the fabric of reality. This idea blurs the boundaries between psyche and world, suggesting a deep interconnection between mind and cosmos. The collective unconscious also plays a role in the therapeutic process. Jungian analysis seeks to uncover and integrate the unconscious content that shapes an individual's life. This often involves working with dreams, fantasies, and creative expressions to uncover the archetypal patterns at work. The goal is not merely symptom relief, but transformation, the emergence of a more whole and balanced self. Through dialogue with the unconscious, the individual learns to navigate life with greater awareness, authenticity, and purpose. This makes Jungian therapy not just a method of healing, but a spiritual journey, guided by the wisdom of the collective psyche. Despite its abstract nature, the concept of the collective unconscious has practical implications. It challenges us to recognize that we are not isolated beings, but participants in a shared psychic heritage. It encourages humility, empathy, and a deeper appreciation of the diversity of human experience. It also reminds us that personal problems often reflect larger, collective issues, and that healing oneself can contribute to the healing of the world. In a time of global crises, psychological fragmentation, and spiritual hunger, Jung's vision of a collective unconscious offers a path toward deeper understanding and integration. The collective unconscious also speaks to the creative process. Artists, writers, and musicians often tap into archetypal imagery that transcends their personal experience. Great works of art resonate across cultures and epochs because they speak from and to the collective unconscious. Jung viewed artists as modern shamans, individuals who give form to the unconscious through symbolic expression. Creativity thus becomes a means of communion with the deeper self and with the shared human soul. The artist's task is not merely to entertain but to reveal, to bring into light what lies hidden in the depths. As Jung aged, his reflections on the collective unconscious became increasingly philosophical and spiritual. He came to see it not only as a psychological reality but as a metaphysical one. In his final works, such as Mysterium Conjunctionis and his autobiography, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung explored the idea of the self as a cosmic principle, a unifying center that transcends the individual and participates in a greater whole. The collective unconscious, in this view, is not just a repository of inherited patterns, but a manifestation of a deeper order, a spiritual matrix that connects all beings. Carl Jung's theory of the collective unconscious remains a cornerstone of depth psychology and a profound insight into the human condition. It invites us to look beyond the surface of our lives and into the depths where our personal stories merge with the universal. It teaches that we are not alone in our struggles, our dreams, or our desires, that within each of us lies a connection to something vast, ancient, and sacred. To engage with the collective unconscious is to participate in the ongoing evolution of human consciousness, to become co-creators of meaning, and to walk the path of individuation with humility and courage. Jung's legacy is not merely a set of theories, but a way of seeing, a vision of the psyche as a living, symbolic, and interconnected reality. The collective unconscious is its foundation, a deep well of wisdom that calls to us in dreams, myths, and synchronicities. It challenges us to awaken to the hidden dimensions of ourselves and our world. In doing so, it offers not just knowledge, but transformation, a return to wholeness, to meaning, and to the mystery at the heart of being.